네, 여러분 오랫동안 감사드립니다. 제가 아마 이런 세미나나 포럼에 참여한 것 중에서 가장 많은 연사와 최장기 마라톤 포럼인 것 같은데 저희가 좀 욕심이 많았습니다. 그래서 좀 이해해 주시고요. 지금 토론 시간이 극히 짧긴 하지만 오늘 테크놀로지 미래 얘기가 많이 나왔지 않습니까? 그래서 이제 양자 시대, 퀀텀 시대로 간다고 하는데 아마 양자 역학에서는 시간이 선형적이지 않고 비선형적이라서 아마 내년에 우리가 이 행사를 할 때 더 진지하고 깊은 토론과 이 Q&A 시간을 갖겠습니다. 그러니까 워프해서 점핑해서 내년에 또 더 많은 토론을 할 거라고 제가 장담 드립니다. 그래서 지금 오늘 나왔던 다양한 이야기 중에 에코, 이제 로우 카본이나 정원, 가든, 자연, 네이처 이게 굉장히 향후 미래에는 중요한 이제 이슈인 것 같습니다. 오늘 또 우리 빅토리아 알버트 뮤지엄에서도 실천적인 로우 카본에 대한 실천적인 그러니까 저탄소 미술관에 대한 실천적인 얘기를 해주셨고요. 저희 미술관도 향후 재개관할 때는 저탄소 미술관을 지향할 겁니다. 제가 한 10여 년 전에 세미나에서 이런 이야기들을 큐레이터들이랑 하고 있는데요. 지금 전시를 하나 할 때 수많은 목재 그리고 인쇄, 종이죠. 인쇄를 위한 페인트, 커튼 저희가 한 전시를 할 때 거의 30%를 전시장 조성을 위해서 쓰는데 그게 한번 활용이 되고 다 쓰레기장으로 가죠. 엄청난 지구적 자원 낭비입니다. 그러한 전시들이 지금 이 시간에도 100여 년 전부터 전 세계적으로 수백만 건, 수천 건의 중국 전시가 5천 건이 이루어진다고 하지 않습니까? 매해마다 엄청난 자원 낭비를 하고 있습니다. 미술계가 과연 예술이 그렇게 자원을 낭비할 만한 가치가 있는가라는 게 10여 년 전에 큐레이터들이랑 했던 이야기인데 저희 미술관도 그런 것을 지향을 하고 있습니다. 제가 말이 길어졌는데 여러분 질문 있으시면 짧은 시간이지만 질문을 꼭 하고 싶다는 분은 질문을 해주시면 감사드리겠습니다.
그 사회 자리를 내려놓고요. 부산시립미술관 학예실장입니다. 질문할 수 있는 시간을 가지게 돼서 영광입니다. 지금 오늘 하루 종일 이제 이 발표자의 발표를 듣다 보니까 세 가지의 유형에 대한 미래의 생각들을 하고 있는 것 같습니다. 이미 미래를 향해서 진행되고 있는 미술관과 그리고 미래미술관을 위해서 준비하고 있는 미술관 그리고 미래미술관을 어떻게 할지에 대한 생각을 고민하고 있는 미술관 세 종류로 나눠볼 수 있을 것 같은데 역시 이 중에서 상당히 그 미래의 다른 많은 것들 중에서도 ESG 경영에 대한 것들을 어떻게 이제 끌고 나갈 것인가에 대한 문제는 아마도 오늘 발언을 하지 않은 미술관에조차도 상당한 고민으로 가지고 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 내년 9월 정도에 재개관하게 되는 부산시립미술관도 역시 그렇습니다. 그래서 BMA 빅토리안 알버트 뮤지엄의 디자인 부장으로 계시는 이본 맥킨지 부장님께 한번 질문드리고 싶은데 BMA 같은 경우에는 디자인을 사례로 해서 오늘 발표를 해주셨습니다. 그렇지만 디자인 이외에 파인아트도 동시에 안고 있는 뮤지엄이 빅토리안 알버트 뮤지엄인데 그래서 이제 지속 가능한 미술관 ESG 경영을 위해서는 어떻게 해야 될 건지의 고민의 디자인 분야가 아닌 파인아트와 결부를 시키거나 또는 파인아트의 어떤 영역에서 생각을 했을 때 또 어떤 이제 전략들을 가지고 계신지에 대한 이제 생각들을 한번 듣고 싶다라는 생각이 들고요. 그 이유는 여기에 계시는 대부분이 파인아트의 중심 또는 이제 교육 그리고 컬렉션 많은 것들도 있지만 한켠에서는 환경을 위해서라면 미술관에서 전시를 안 해야 된다라는 이야기도 나올 만큼 상당히 이제 아이러니한 이 환경들입니다. 그래서 많은 요소들이 작용하고 있는 게 미술관이기 때문에 그런 부분 더불어 덧붙여서 짤막한 설명 부탁드릴 수 있을까 싶습니다.
Yes, we do have a fine art collection. I don't think I'm going to be the person to judge whether or not exhibitions should happen inside museums. I think probably all of us in this room think that that's a good endeavour. We are, though, however, I think we're trying to work towards, changing some expectations and some standards. So we're part of the BISO protocol, which I'm sure lots of people here are also involved with. And I think, we've got a lot of traditional practices around the preservation and presentation of art that will change. We're in a hotter, wetter city in London, and the environmental conditions they're shifting. And actually, I think what's interesting is to think about what we consider the optimum environmental conditions and what's really necessary. And so I think we're looking at how we think about being more flexible and open in terms of that, which can have ecological benefits. I guess that's probably like one of the big things, and trying to think about passive care for objects. I mean, we've got like about 5 million objects in the collection, so it's a big concern for us. But yeah, thinking about the kind of environmental care and how that can be both renewably generated in terms of overhauling our energy and infrastructure, but also just thinking about changing the parameters to be a bit less narrow, I think is probably the way I'd put it, or probably two of the big changes we're thinking about. Does that answer the question? But yes, more exhibitions forever, for sure. People should see the stuff. I think if it is sitting in a storeroom and not on show for people to enjoy, you are not a museum, you are just a store. So I think, yeah, getting it out is important, yeah.
네.
I just want to thank you so much for today. It was amazing, both being here in this room and also the food. I don't think I had the chance to say earlier, and I think that sustained me throughout the afternoon. But I wanted to also, to continue some of the comments that you were making now in relation to how what happened with and this is the reason why I brought the old school thing in the sense that all these expansive immersive projects sometimes leave on a side the question of who is living outside of that world, and how can, I think Ars Electronica, ZKM, and many of the projects you were saying, for instance, also, like the Tim Johnson Museum had changed, the demography of the audiences. And I feel like the focus on audiences for us, and I will say not only audiences but community, right? Like, because audiences and public is something that you still can determine, something that you can cater for in a way, And I want to sort of like think about not only art exhibitions being displayed in museums, or to think about the museums differently. When I was saying, I realized I didn't have that picture, and I feel like a bit intimidated to present it publicly because I don't have the permission of the person that is in the picture. But recently I was walking through the museum and I found somebody that was sleeping in one of the foyers of the museum. And I feel like the museum has to be these places that, as I was saying earlier, there had to be something that happened in the museum that goes beyond your right to, let's say, culture within the museum. And the museum as a space where you can hide. Maybe you can sleep also, is a critical one. So I feel like it's not only museums or art exhibitions staying in the museum. Also, I feel like the art exhibition making has a component to transform the exhibition, even if it's temporary. This is something that we have been taught, even if there is no permanent modern art museum for China or for the history of art, modern and contemporary in China, as one of the colleagues would say at the beginning, all this temporariness of the shows, given a sense perhaps too diverse and too vague and too broad. But there is some sort of like a property, some need of creating, of generating that storytelling around modern and contemporary Chinese art or Chinese culture through art. So anyway, what I was trying to say with this is that exhibition making as a project is also an instituting gesture that help us to understand perhaps future possibilities, even if the museum doesn't necessarily come to terms to address it immediately, right? But it's always the exhibition space or exhibition time, exhibition, the summary between space and time, whatever that is called nowadays, allowed us to create those moments those instituting moments. And I think this, together with the people that are going to experience that, and I'm so grateful for Brendan to bring the idea of the experience of the space, right? Like the embodiment of the museum as is only way to the future. No, that's relevant for me is that kind of sense. So in a way, yes to the shows, but also to the exhibitions and museums that do something else for those that inhabit it or want to experience it.
저는 제가 좀 덧붙여 얘기한다면 오늘 좀 공통적인 이야기가 있는 것 같습니다. 그러니까 엘비라 우리 관장님이 살아있는 작품이라는 것들을 얘기해 주셨고 어떻게 보면 저는 항상 막바에 갔었을 때 놀라는 것 중에 하나가 막바 가면 항상 그 미술관 앞에 굉장히 많은 청소년들이 모여서 스케이트보드를 타고 있는데 우리나라 같으면 아마 다 쫓아냈을 겁니다. 항상 그 앞에서 타고 있는데 향유자가 생산자이기도 하면서 창작자이기도 한, 그러니까 향유자와 이제 창작자가 구분이 없는 그러한 개념을 앞서서 말씀을 해주셨고, 그 얘기는 미술관이 쓰는 역사, 그 서사적 기술이 과거처럼 전문가 집단에 의한 히스토리가 아니라 히스토리즈, 우리들이 같이 만들어 나가는 그런 것들인 것 같습니다. 그리고 또 우리 이제 브랜든 선생님이 말씀하셨던 것 중에서 제가 굉장히 재미난 게 무엇을 관람객들이 경험하고 싶어 하는가? 그러니까 공급자 입장이 아니라 수용자 입장으로서 생각하는 부분. 그리고 제가 가장 느꼈던 게 그 미술관에 가서 봤었을 때 몰입형 경험이 아니라 확장적 경험이라는 게 굉장히 중요하다고 생각을 하는데, 몰입형 경험이라는 가상 안에서 현실과 단절이라는 이야기가 될 수도 있지만, 확장적 경험이라는 것은 어떻게 보면 그 현실과 가상의 연결끈을 놓지 않는, 그러니까 상상의 영역이죠. 현실과 허구가 아닌 그 중간에 상상의 영역으로서 확장적 경험을 한다라고 하는, 어떤 제 이야기가 잘 전달이 됐는지 모르겠지만 그런 이야기가 굉장히 저는 그 많은 우리 미술관의 그 관장님들이 그리고 큐레이터 선생님들이 얘기하셨던 분인 것 같습니다. 그리고 제가 한 가지 또 언급하고 싶었던 이야기는, 많은 선생님들이 너무 좋은 말씀을 해주셔서 다 코멘트는 할 수는 없지만, 아까 그 퓨처리움에서 말하는 이제 교육 프로그램들을, 뽕삐두도 그렇고 퓨처리움도 그렇고 찾아가는 창의적 교육, 그리고 미술관이 공간을 벗어나서 물리적 한계를 벗어나서 찾아가는 교육적 창의적 교육을 많이 말씀을 하셨고, 유네스코도 언급이 나왔는데, 제가 유네스코에서 지금 정책이 바뀐 게 그 개발도상 국가에 현물을 지원을 하는 게 아니라, 옥수수나 쌀이나 이런 걸 지원하는 게 아니라 개발도상국에 이제는 문화를 지원한다고 합니다. 예술 문화 교육을. 그러면 젊은 빈민국의 아이들이 자기 인지 과잉에서 벗어나서 자기 결정성이 생기고 꿈과 희망을 갖게 되고 미래를 바라보게 된다라는 그런 결과가 나와서, 연구 결과가 나와서 유네스코도 예술문화교육으로 전환됐다는 이야기가 있습니다. 저희가 이제 시간 관계상 조금 마쳐야 될 시간이긴 하지만 꼭 질문을 해야 되겠다고 네, 마지막 질문을 하나 받고 저희가 끝내겠습니다.
It might be out of a blue question, but I'm interested in the interconnection and the relationship between space and visitors. So my question is about the exhibition design. And so many museums are facing renovations because of the outdated facilities. And however, because of the limited budgets, so I think the exhibition design might be the very important point of the future museum. So my question is about, like, until now, exhibition space design has been dependent on, like, on the personal expertise and experiences. So, like, it seems like visitors are not really substantively engaged, or nor like really actively participated in. So, what I just imagined it was like we can have the data of the visitor behavior, and then like see whether the specific design elements or some sort of space exhibition design could like affect on the engagement of visitor, or like the immersiveness and also the satisfaction. So we can like have the exhibition performance evaluation much more developed, enhancing of it. So I was wondering that, is there a need of those systemic thing in practitioners like institutions?
It's data, I think, and how it informs what we do is really interesting. We do not data gathering in the development, but afterwards, and try and use it to inform subsequent projects. So for every exhibition that we do, we will survey a percentage of people who come, and we will ask a whole range of questions about what they thought about the exhibition. And it's interesting because that data, it only really tells you what you ask, you know? And I think we often get really specific intelligence from those reports. Some of it's really useful, some of it's kind of not. And I think what is the thing that would be really amazing is while you're in the development phase, right? To be making choices. So when you're optioning, we could do something like this or like this. That would be an interesting point to get someone's input. We do have 2 youth collectives that we work with within the museum who shape and determine program activity and what we're going to do, and they are engaged in a long term. So you become a youth collective member for like a whole year, and that is really kind of meaningful, because I think the kind of survey data is quite transactional. But actually, when you've got that kind of co-creation and that qualitative intel that comes from someone who's engaged with the process up front, I think that's really valuable and is 100% shaping things that we do and where we take them, and the look and the feel and stuff. And for us, we don't do it as much as I think we could. We're often doing things really fast, and there's not the kind of luxury of baking it in. But I think in the future, I think it will be a huge part of how we develop ideas and different scenarios and different approaches, for sure. Yeah, I think it's, I don't know. Does anyone else want to jump in? Yeah.
Okay.
I'll quickly just say one thing. It's a really good question, and the only thing I'll add is a thing that, you know, a field that's very relevant to museums but doesn't get engaged enough is user experience design, and basically understanding how people respond to things. So one of the things that we do at the museum is play testing of exhibits when they're in development. So when they're in a super, super rough form where they don't look good, but the basics of the interaction are known, we get people to test them, and you just learn these very intuitive things about where people's eyes go when they sit down and things like that. And these things help the legibility and understandability of the experience, regardless of what the subject matter is. It's more just like, how can we create a situation where the broadest range of people are comfortable, feel that they can sort of engage in an intuitive way, and then whatever the subject matter happens to be or the experience happens to be, we at least feel like we've done the due diligence to understand that that will actually work. It is there is a kind of luxury to that, and not everybody has enough time. But I will say it's not a particularly expensive process. It is just a matter of committing to it, creating very basic, rough prototypes of what you're trying to do, and then letting people use them.
the point about data is really interesting. I mentioned earlier that we have a collecting tool which is called the lens. So everyone who comes to our museum gets a lens, and they can collect every object that has a label in the museum. It's also a data collecting tool for us. So we can follow the journey of every visitor through the museum. So we know what they've collected, we know how long it's taken for them to go through an exhibition, what their favourite things are. We've given about, I think, 3 million of these things away, and about 12 million things have been collected, which means people collect them digitally. They go home, they go online, and they put their code in, and they can see the things they've collected curated into a constellation of other things. But it tells us a lot about what people like to do and what their journey is. And we have changed our exhibits according to that. We found that one thing that was hidden away in a corner was actually one of the most popular things in the whole museum, and so we moved it. And yeah, we've, over a period of about 3 years, it has informed our curators and their practice quite a lot. So yeah, data and information, very important.
네, 감사합니다. 저희가 이제 다음 일정 때문에 마쳐야 될 시간입니다. 네, 내년에 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.